Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jay Wallen and this is the combo of the month. Today we're going to be talking about the Alabama rig. You either love it, you either hate it, maybe you haven't quite figured it out. And today we're just going to talk about the rod, the reel, the line, keep things super simple for you. That way you can go out, put yourself together a little combo to throw the Alabama rig. You know, having the right rod and the right reel and the right line makes throwing the Alabama rig easy. If you're not using the right equipment, you can get really frustrated throwing this particular bait. It's heavy, it's hard to throw, and it can it can wear you out. You can get shoulder fatigue, elbow fatigue, wrist fatigue. A lot of different things can make throwing this particular bait relatively unpleasant. So using the right equipment is going to change all of that for you. Now, right off the bat, it's no secret, most people want to use a really long and really heavy rod for the Alabama rig. I'm no different. I do like to use a long, heavy rod. This particular setup, I'm gonna get the rig out of the way here for you. We'll talk about rig choices here in a second. But this particular rod is an NRX 916C UBR, and that's a 7-foot 7-inch fast extra heavy tip rod. You know, this is a pull stick cue, super stiff, super long, super heavy. I paired it up with the Shimano Tranx. That's a 5.8 gear ratio reel, and this is a bulldog reel. You know, this is a very labor intensive fishing technique. And so you really need the proper reel to match up with the proper rod. Now this rod is 7'7". What that allows you to do is you can kind of make a long sweeping cast, and the rod does most of the work. It saves your elbows, saves your shoulder, saves your wrist. On the retrieve, you know, this 5.8 Tranx reel is such a stout reel that it will pretty much do all of the retrieve work for you. Your hand's not going to get cramped up and tired of cranking, you know, like if you're used to cranking deep diving crankbaits or something like that. This reel is going to prevent a lot of hand fatigue. So that's pretty much the rod and reel combo. You know, here's where things get a little different, is with line choice for me personally. If I'm fishing a clear lake with a lot of grass and not a lot of hard cover, I'll use a 20 to 25 pound fluorocarbon line. A little trick that I like to use on my home lake of Cedar Creek is it's full of standing timber, and so what I like to do is I use braided line. I've actually got some here. I use the Power Pro Super Slick 50 to 65 pound test, pretty much whatever you use to frog with. I like to use that braid, and what I do is I use a light wire hook. I use a 4/0 16th ounce weighted swim bait hook. But I use the light wire. That way, if I hang up the rig in a submerged tree or a piece of standing timber, with that heavy line, I can actually pull and straighten the hook out without breaking off my entire rig. It's much cheaper to replace a single hook and a swim bait than it is to replace an entire rig. So if I'm fishing a super heavy cover lake with trees, you know, rocks, laydowns, that kind of thing, depends on what you're fishing. Then I'll use a braid just so I can straighten those hooks out when I get hung up. Now, if I'm fishing open water or I'm fishing a grassy lake or something clear, that's when I'll use the 20 to 25 pound fluorocarbon line. Now, this particular Tranx reel, like I said, it's a 5.8 gear ratio reel. It's pretty slow. You know, this thing is not meant to be fished fast. You know, I like to throw this rig out as far as I can. That's where the 7'7" length comes in handy, is being able to get that bait cast way out there. And then, you know, I like to give it a lot of line. I typically will let the Alabama rig go all the way to the bottom before I start my retrieve. And you want something to keep the bait down. You know, with this particular rig, this is one of the Picasso rigs. It's got spinnerbait blades on it. And what'll happen is if you reel that too fast, this tends to rise in the water column. And I don't want it to do that. I want it to stay down as much as possible. And that's where the 5.8 gear ratio reel comes in handy. It's so slow, it keeps you from overfishing the bait, really. If you're reeling this too fast, it's going to rise and you're not going to get bit. The trick to getting bit with this is keeping it low and fishing it really slow, keeping it near the bottom. So I really like the Tranks 5.8 gear ratio to do that for me. You know, I'm gonna jump in here and just show you guys a couple of different options for Alabama rigs. This is a little finesse rig from Picasso. It's just the schoolie rig, little bait ball, the finesse one. Really small. You know, you can get away with much lighter line. I would still throw it on the same rod, same reel, but maybe use 20-pound fluorocarbon if you're throwing a little finesse rig like this. Some of the bigger ones, you get into the Perfection rig. This is also by Picasso. The Perfection rig doesn't have any blades. Instead, it's got little swim bait screw locks, so that instead of having blades as extra attractants, you can just put a couple of extra swim baits on there. Really cool rig. This one stays deeper, better than the ones with blades on it. You can see this is a standard bait ball from Picasso. This is their standard rig. This is probably the one I throw most often than not. I just love the silver flash from those blades, and I get bit a lot on this. But that's a great bait to use, whether you're fishing grass or timber. Really doesn't matter. This is a great all-around general purpose Alabama rig, and it's super strong. I've never had one break. I've never broken the wires, and to be honest with you, I've completely abused some of my Alabama rigs, especially with the 65-pound braid and getting them hung up deep in some timber. I've pulled and straightened out hooks, and these things put up with a lot of abuse. So that's my go-to, is the Picasso Alabama rigs, and they make a number of different kinds. I do, just as a little extra added flavor, I do like to add some JB's fish sauce, the bait fish scent. I hose down all of those swim baits, and it almost makes, I call it a vapor trail. You spray this JB's fish sauce all over those swim baits, and when you're reeling it through, it just leaves a whole trail of scent. But I love the JB's fish sauce bait fish scent for my Alabama rigs. I think it just adds a little extra kick to it. But that's pretty much it. It's October. Put yourself together a great Alabama rig and get out there and go fishing and catch some of the biggest fish of the year, really, with the Alabama rig. This thing shines from October all the way through winter, really, up into February and even early March. You can really load the boat. But I promise you, you're not going to throw it like you should if you don't have the proper rod and the proper reel and the proper line. You're going to wear yourself out, and you're not going to enjoy throwing it. You're not going to enjoy fishing it. And this is a kind of bait that you have to throw for a long period of time to learn how the fish are going to eat it. You know, like I said, if you don't have the right equipment, then you're not going to fish it properly, and you're probably going to get frustrated with the Alabama rig, and you're going to put it away, and you're missing out. That's all there is to it. You're missing out. So make sure you get the right equipment and get out there and keep throwing this Alabama rig, and I promise you, you're going to load the boat. All right, guys, that's it. That wraps it up for the combo of the month. We're doing the Alabama rig. Just a real quick overview, throwing the NRX 7'7", extra heavy, extra fast rod, which is their Alabama rig rod. Pairing that up with a Shimano Tranks 5.8 to 1 gear ratio reel. And we're throwing 20-pound Sunline fluorocarbon on that right now. You can switch it up with braid. 50 to 65-pound braid, using 4/0 swim bait hooks with 16th ounce weights, and of course your swim bait of choice. And that does it for me. That's it for this episode of Combo of the Month. Put yourself together this combo, get out there, throw that Alabama rig, and load the boat.